What happens when a quiet man builds a pool with his bare hands only to have his neighbor turn it into her private resort and accuse him of watching? You won't believe how one camera and one voice turned the whole neighborhood upside down. They say when you turn 50, you stop caring what people think. I thought that was true until Karen showed up with 3 folding chairs, a Bluetooth speaker, and a damn cooler full of lime wedges like she was hosting spring break in Miami. In my backyard. Not her yard. Not the community pool. Mine. Let me rewind. My name's Wallace Darnell. I'm 56 years old, born and raised in Alabama, retired HVAC contractor, proud grandfather of 2 beautiful girls who come over every other weekend. I like my peace, I like my yard, and I don't bother nobody. Not even Karen. And trust me, that takes effort. I built my backyard with my own 2 hands. Laid the stone tile one piece at a time. Dug the trench, installed the pump, mixed the concrete, sanded the wood fence until it was smoother than a politician's apology. That pool, 6 feet deep on one side with steps and a waterfall, was my piece. My slice of heaven. My reward for 40 years of backbreaking work. And now? It was a stage for madness. It started 3 days ago on a Thursday morning hotter than the devil's kneecaps. I was out back, sipping coffee, watching the steam rise off the water, thinking about adding a few potted palms around the grill. That's when I noticed movement near the fence. Not the usual squirrel or possum. No, this was tall, blonde, and bold. Karen. She was pacing with her phone like she was hosting a press conference. Her heels clicked on the sidewalk like she owned the whole damn cul-de-sac. She spotted me, waved with 2 fingers, and said, "Oh. Didn't realize you were up this early?" I raised my mug and gave a polite nod. Didn't say a word. I learned the trick from my Uncle Otis: sometimes silence keeps the peace better than law enforcement. Then she said something that had me squinting like I just bit into a lemon. "So, the HOA had a meeting. Don't worry, you didn't miss much, but they're a little concerned about your pool being unregistered." Unregistered? Lady, the only thing more official than that pool was my birth certificate. I don't recall seeing anything in the bylaws about private pools needing registration, I said calmly. This is my land, bought and paid for. She tilted her head and gave me that smile. You know the one. That smile folks use when they're about to say something they know is stupid but think sounds smart anyway. Well, it's just that your fence line is a few inches off the property marker. Technically, there's a gray area. I stood up, set my mug down slow. You trying to swim in my gray area, Karen? She laughed. Not cute. Not warm. That kind of laugh that made me want to check my deed just to feel better. That was the end of the conversation. Or so I thought. The next morning, I stepped out onto my patio in my house shoes, robe tied tight, ready to water the roses. First thing I heard? Music. Not birds. Not breeze. Music. Loud, bass-thumping, margarita-sipping music. I turned the corner and damn near dropped my coffee. For people I had never seen in my life were lounging in my backyard like they were at a resort. Towels on my chairs. Flip-flops on my tiles. One guy was literally sitting on my grill. Sitting. On. My. Grill. And in the middle of the chaos? Karen. Big sun hat, bigger attitude, and a frozen drink in her hand like she was running a travel agency. I walked right up to her. Karen. What the hell is this? She didn't flinch. Just pointed at the pool and said, "We figured you wouldn't mind. It's just for a few hours. You're not using it right now anyway, are you?" I was speechless. "I didn't give you permission," I said, slow and clear. "This is my property. My backyard." She rolled her eyes. "Relax, Wallace. We're all neighbors. It's hot. People need a place to cool off. And technically, that gray area is still unresolved." My patience was draining faster than my pool's filter on a sandstorm day. "You climbed over my fence." "Well, we opened the back gate," she said, gesturing with her drink. "It wasn't locked. So now, because I chose to trust my neighbors and didn't put a padlock on my gate, I was running a public spa. That's when I made my first mistake. I asked them to leave calmly. With dignity. Like a man. Told them I wasn't comfortable having strangers on my property. Told Karen I'd appreciate it if she asked before stepping foot in my yard again. She blinked at me like I spoke another language. Then she pulled out her phone. And here's where things got weird. She turned the camera on herself and said, "We are being harassed. This man is making us feel unsafe. He's standing here watching women in swimsuits. We feel uncomfortable." I was stunned. Couldn't even get the words out. She angled the camera toward me and repeated, "Uncomfortable. Male gaze. Private moments invaded." I said, "You're in my yard. You don't own the airspace," she snapped. Oh, so now she's an expert in zoning laws? By Sunday, the situation had escalated. They came back. This time it was a full-blown pool party. Balloons. Folding tables. A damn DJ. No, I'm not kidding. They had a DJ. On my lawn. Power cord running from my shed. My tools pushed aside to make room for her buffet table of nachos and barbecue sliders. I called the police. They showed up 45 minutes later, chatted with Karen first. When they finally walked over to me, the officer said, "Sir, she claims there's an ongoing property dispute and you haven't posted a visible no trespassing sign." I said, "What I need to post is a reminder that this country still has private property laws." He smiled weakly and said, "Maybe you two should work it out with the HOA." Work it out? The same HOA Karen shared? The next morning, I woke up to find my face on Facebook. Karen posted a blurry picture of me standing near the fence with the caption, "This man has been watching us for days. He stares. He films. He intimidates. All we wanted was a safe place to swim." And just like that, I wasn't a homeowner anymore, I was a creep. In my own neighborhood. On land I paid for with every inch of my back, my hands, and my years. I tried to explain. I commented under the post. Karen deleted it. Then she posted another photo, this time of her sipping a drink near my pool, captioned, "If this is wrong, I don't want to be right. Let me tell you something. This wasn't about water. It wasn't even about the pool. This was about control. Power. Ego. The idea that folks like Karen can walk into your space, claim what ain't theirs, twist the story, and turn a hardworking man into a villain just because they're loud enough and smug enough to get away with it. And me? I was tired of being the one who keeps it polite. But I wasn't done. Not even close. What happened next changed everything. You do not want to miss how deep this went. Because when the pressure built, I found out just how far Karen was willing to go and just how far I was willing to push back. You ever wake up feeling like the world turned upside down while you were sleeping? That's how Monday felt. I opened my eyes, rolled over, and my phone buzzed like it was testifying in church. Missed calls. Texts. Voicemails. All from folks I barely hear from unless it's someone's funeral or barbecue. First one I opened was from Jerome across the street. All it said was, "Man, you good." Second one from my niece in Atlanta. "Uncle Wally, why are you on Nextdoor?" Third one? A screenshot of me, standing by my own fence in my own yard with a caption that read, "Disturbing behavior from the man next door. Women deserve to feel safe while they swim." And it had 143 likes. Let me say this, I built that fence to keep out raccoons, not rumors. So I stepped out on the porch to catch my breath, and what do I see? More folding chairs. More towels. More people. Not just women this time, families. Whole groups. A woman was setting up juice boxes on my patio table like this was her cousin's baby shower. A kid ran by in floaties yelling, "Cannonball," before jumping into my pool. And the DJ? Oh, he was back. This time he brought a bigger speaker and a backup generator. You think I'm exaggerating? You couldn't make this up if you tried. Now, here's the part that really tested my patience. I walked down the steps, steady and slow, just like my mother taught me when I was 12 and almost lost it on a substitute teacher. You hold your breath. You stay calm. You use your words. I made it all the way to the edge of the patio before Karen spotted me. She looked up from her lounge chair like I'd disturbed her nap. "Wallace," she said, real sweet, like I was a dog that just tracked mud into her kitchen. "If you're going to hang around again, I'd appreciate it if you didn't stare so much. Let me tell you something. There are moments in life where your hands twitch and your jaw tightens and everything inside you says, don't do it. Don't lose your cool. Not in front of strangers. Not where there's a camera." I swallowed hard and said, "Karen, what is this? Why are there 20 people in my yard?" She gestured around like she was showing off a timeshare. "Community engagement," she said. "It's important. It's hot out. Folks need water. And honestly, Wallace, if you didn't want attention, maybe you shouldn't have built something so visible." Visible? Visible? Ma'am, this isn't Times Square. This is my yard. My fence. My pool. But no. According to Karen, my yard had become our space. My labor? Just a gift she decided to share. And when I told her again, as plain and calm as I could, "You are trespassing and I need you and your guests to leave," she did something I didn't expect. She smiled. Then she raised her voice and said loud enough for the whole party to hear, "There he goes again. Intimidating people. This is exactly what I've been warning y'all about." Let me pause right here and make something crystal clear. I am not a small man. I'm 6 feet 2 inches, a solid 225, with a face that doesn't exactly scream, "Come talk to me about your feelings." I get that. I don't wear sweaters with puppies. I don't lead yoga retreats. But I'm also the guy who fixes his neighbor's A/CS in the summer for free. The guy who mows Mrs. Riley's front lawn when her son's away. The guy who doesn't raise his voice unless someone's bleeding or the house is on fire. And yet, there I was painted as the villain while Karen held court like she was Mother Teresa in a visor. I turned, walked straight into my house, locked the door, and sat down. Didn't say a word for 5 hours. That night, I drafted a letter. A formal notice of trespass. Printed it, signed it, stuck it in an envelope. Walked it over to her house at 8 p.m., knocked, and handed it over like I was delivering the 10 Commandments. Karen took it with a fake smile and said thanks. But I'd check with the HOA before wasting more ink. I said, this has nothing to do with the HOA. She raised her eyebrows like I just told her the earth was flat. Then she said, you know, it's funny how some people always feel so possessive. Maybe if you were a little more open-minded, Wallace, this wouldn't be such an issue. Open-minded? I walked back to my house before I said something that would land me on the evening news. The next day, I found a note in my mailbox. Typed. No signature. Just a plain sheet of paper with the words. This neighborhood doesn't need your kind of energy. My kind of energy? I sat on the porch that afternoon and watched Karen smile and wave to the mailman. Watched her compliment a dog she probably couldn't stand. Watched her bask in this warped version of reality she'd created where she was the good neighbor and I was the angry problem no one wanted to deal with. By now, the whispers had started. At the grocery store, the woman who usually chatted about tomatoes barely made eye contact. At the barbershop, Gerald cracked a joke about peeping pools. I didn't even laugh. What hurt wasn't just the lie, it was how fast people were willing to believe it. All it took was one white lawn chair, one glass of lemonade, and a Facebook post. By Thursday, I had to park 2 blocks down because Karen's community swim had overflowed into the street. She even made a flyer. A flyer. Printed and laminated with pool day at the Blandons written in bold letters with my address listed underneath. I marched over to her house and held up the flyer like it was Exhibit A in a courtroom. You need to take this down, I said. She looked me dead in the eye and said, Wallace, the community has spoken. This isn't about you anymore. And that right there? That was the moment something shifted. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just one bad neighbor. This was a machine. A slow-moving, smiling machine that knew exactly how to turn your hard work into their playground, then shame you when you spoke up. That night, I sat by my pool. Just me, a single lawn chair, and silence. And I thought about all the times I stayed quiet. All the times I let people say what they wanted because I didn't want trouble. But this was something else. Because now, the story was changing. Now I was the one people crossed the street to avoid. I was the angry man with the fence. The one watching women. The one hoarding resources. And Karen? Karen was just doing what she had to do. For the community. This is it. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for, every push, every insult, every invasion is about to explode. Stay right here. Because what happens next? It changes everything. It's funny how people will paint you as the villain just for defending what's yours. Like the moment you stop smiling and start standing up, suddenly you're the problem. Not the woman hosting pop-up pool parties in your backyard. Not the strangers turning your lavender bushes into wet towel racks. Nope. You. Me? I was done smiling. By Friday, every ounce of patience I had left had been squeezed out like the last drop of toothpaste. I'd been polite. I'd made calls. I'd filed complaints. I even printed out property lines from the county office and taped them to my fence like I was building a courtroom exhibit. Didn't matter. Karen still strutted into my yard like it was her stage, clapping for the DJ, passing out Capri Suns like she was queen of the neighborhood. Folks brought paper plates and fold-out trays. There were burgers. Lawn games. Somebody set up a slip-and-slide across my walkway like I was running a summer camp for chaos. You think I'm exaggerating? I had to ask a 6-year-old to please get his hot dog off my tool bench. So I did what any man with a lifetime of receipts and a rising blood pressure would do. I called in my nephew Malik. Now, Malik ain't just any relative. He's a real estate attorney. Works downtown. Suit sharp as a razor and mouth even sharper. He grew up right down the street, knows the neighborhood, and has zero tolerance for foolishness wrapped in legal gray areas. He came over Saturday morning with a folder thicker than a church hymnal and a voice loud enough to make squirrels run. We walked the property line together. Me, tight-lipped and tired. Him, narrating like a sports commentator. She got 6 feet of her patio furniture across the line, Wallace. That's 6 feet of trespass. And this. He pointed to the DJ's extension cord running from my shed. That's unauthorized usage of private utilities. I could get an injunction just off that cord. I didn't say much. Just nodded. Let him do his work. Karen spotted us about halfway through and came marching over like she was on parade. Sun visor tilted. Fake smile freshly ironed. "Oh wow," she said. "So we're having family reunions now? That's cute." Malik didn't blink. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "you are trespassing on private property, violating city code, and engaging in defamation via public platforms. We have records. We have timestamps. And we are done playing nice." Karen blinked. Then smiled. "Wallace, come on," she said, turning to me, her tone syrupy again. "Don't be so stiff. It's summer. We're all just trying to have fun. Besides, no one's been hurt." Malik stepped in. "Someone doesn't have to be hurt for this to be wrong. You're operating without consent. You've publicly accused my uncle of behavior you have no evidence of. And you've turned this entire community against a man who's done nothing but mind his business and mow his lawn." She laughed. "You're overreacting." He raised an eyebrow. "We'll let a judge decide." That wiped the grin right off her face. But here's the part that really drove it home. It wasn't just about the legal stuff. It was about how folks started looking at me. Again. After Malik left, I walked to the store to grab groceries. Took me 20 minutes to get a loaf of bread and some coffee, not because the line was long, but because people wouldn't speak to me. Miss Evelyn, who I helped with her fence last year. She turned her cart when she saw me. The Wilson boys, who used to ask about my old Chevy. Suddenly too busy with chips? All because of one woman with a phone and a talent for looking innocent in selfies. It started to eat at me. Not the rumors, but the silence. It made me question every choice I'd made. Should I have put up a taller fence? Should I have locked the gate sooner? Should I have ignored her the moment she showed up? But no. This wasn't about mistakes. This was about someone hijacking your peace, then acting like they're the victim when you ask for it back. By Sunday morning, I had a plan. No shouting. No revenge. Just proof. You see, Karen made one mistake. She got too comfortable. So I did what she probably never expected. I installed cameras. Not in secret. Not hidden. Big, bold cameras mounted on the corners of my roof and by the shed. Clear view of the pool, the fence, and the patio. Signs that said "property under surveillance" in clean block letters. Within 2 hours, she was knocking on my door. I opened it slow. "Wallace," she said, her voice pinched tight, "is that really necessary?" I crossed my arms. "Yes, Karen. It is. Since people seem confused about whose yard this is, I figured it's best to document everything. For everyone's safety." She scoffed. "You're trying to intimidate us now?" "No, ma'am. I'm protecting myself. Because the next time someone accuses me of watching them, I'll have something more reliable than a Facebook post." She didn't like that. Not one bit. But here's where the real fireworks came in. That afternoon, just hours after I put up the cameras, Karen held another party. Bigger. Louder. More guests. She called it the Good Vibes Swim Fest and posted it on the neighborhood app like it was a citywide block party. But this time, nobody showed up. Well, maybe 3 folks came. 2 left early. 1 just picked up a soda and sat in the corner. The music was loud, the pool was clear, but the energy? Dead. Why? Because people saw the signs. Because cameras have a funny way of making folks act right. And just like that, her parade started to shrink. But Karen? Oh no. She didn't shrink with it. She pivoted. Later that night, I heard another knock at the door. I opened it expecting an apology. What I got? 2 police officers. Again. I stood on the porch, calm, collected. "Sir," the taller one said, glancing at his clipboard, "we've had a report of surveillance harassment." I blinked. "Excuse me. The complainant says you installed recording devices pointed at their property, causing discomfort and stress. You mean the cameras pointed at my pool? On my land?" The officer sighed. "We're just here to ask questions." So I answered them. Showed them the footage. Walked them through the timestamps. Explained the parties. The flyers. The power cords. The accusations. And then I said something I hadn't said in 2 weeks. "You're welcome to take a dip, gentlemen. But this pool is mine." They left. Quiet. And I knew they finally saw it. This wasn't about a pool. It was about power. About how some people think they can take and twist and shame you into silence. But not me. Not anymore. I wasn't angry. I was ready. Because when the system forgets your name and the crowd forgets your face, you've still got 2 things, your proof and your peace. And I wasn't letting go of either. You've come this far. Don't blink now. The final chapter is where it all hits the fan, and what happens next. You'll feel it in your bones. I've always believed that a man's yard is a sanctuary. Not a symbol. Not a status badge. Just a quiet place you create with your hands, sweat, and Sunday mornings. Something that tells the world, I built this. This is mine. But after 3 weeks of flyers, lies, and folded chairs littered across my garden like confetti after a storm, that sanctuary had become a battlefield. And I was tired. Tired of whispers. Tired of stares. Tired of waking up to find my peace stomped out by loud music and louder people pretending it wasn't wrong because it was fun. But more than anything, I was tired of feeling like I was the one who needed to explain himself. It was the following Tuesday when it all came to a head. I stepped out early that morning, coffee in hand, still wearing my robe and slippers. And there, right on the edge of my flower bed, was Karen holding court again. She wasn't swimming. No. This time, she was pacing with her phone on speaker, talking loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. Honestly, I'm just trying to keep things inclusive, she said. But he's been so territorial. It's uncomfortable for all of us. Uncomfortable? I stood there in the open. Didn't say a word. Just watched her walk and talk like I was invisible. 5 minutes later, she saw me. She hung up and walked over, arms crossed. Wallace, I think it's time we sit down with the HOA and come to some sort of mutual agreement. I raised an eyebrow. Mutual? You've hosted 6 events in my yard, invited half the neighborhood, turned my name into a meme, and now you want mutual? She sighed like I was the child here. It's about unity. About what's best for the community. I took a step closer, not threatening, just firm. What's best for the community is truth. And what's true is that you violated every line, law, and neighborly courtesy we got. She looked at me, lips tight. No comeback this time. Just that hollow smile she wore when things didn't go her way. Later that afternoon, I got a letter. From the HOA. Thick envelope. Fancy paper. It was a formal request to attend a community hearing regarding disruptive behavior and tensions surrounding shared neighborhood spaces. I stood there holding that letter like it had claws. Shared neighborhood spaces. That pool wasn't shared. That fence wasn't communal. I built it with busted knuckles and long weekends. And now some committee wanted to decide whether I had the right to my own land? I showed up at the hearing dressed sharp. Pressed khakis, blue button-down, clean shoes. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because when folks already got a story about you in their heads, you don't show up giving them props for it. There were 20 people in the room. Most of them I'd known for years. Some nodded when I walked in. Others looked down. Karen sat near the front in a light pink blazer, sipping from a water bottle like she was on trial for baking too many cookies. The meeting started polite. Chairwoman Harris read through the agenda. Talked about growing concerns. About deteriorating neighborly spirit. About claims of exclusion and surveillance. Then they asked me to speak. And I did. I stood up, looked every one of them in the eye, and told them everything. From the first day Karen slid her chair into my yard to the moment she twisted my silence into something sick. I told them about the flyers, the parties, the music, the accusations, the cameras, the police. But more than all that, I told them how it felt. How it felt to be dismissed in your own space. How it felt to be accused without being heard. How it felt to walk into your own garden and be treated like a trespasser by people sipping lemonade on your lawn. I didn't yell. I didn't spit fire. I spoke slow, clear, and with all the weight that comes when your dignity's been stepped on long enough to leave a mark. Then I pulled out the folder. All the printouts, screenshots, videos, dates, times, a full 3-ring binder titled Proof. I placed it on the table like a stone slab and slid it forward. You can pass judgment, I said. But don't say I came here with nothing. The room went quiet. Karen tried to speak. Said something about misunderstandings and miscommunication. But it didn't land the way it used to. People were seeing the difference now between a pool party and a pattern. Between community and control. 2 days later, I got a knock on the door. Chairwoman Harris. Envelope in hand. She looked tired. Embarrassed even. Mr. Darnell, she said. The committee met privately after your statement. We reviewed everything you presented. I waited. She handed me the letter. Inside, a formal apology. From the board. Acknowledging my property boundaries. Acknowledging the harm done. Confirming that no future events would be sanctioned or tolerated without my consent. That's all I needed to hear. But that wasn't the end. No. The end came 3 weeks later, when the local paper ran a story titled, "When Community Crosses the Line, One Man's Fight for Peace." They interviewed me, not because I wanted attention, but because people need to know. Just because someone's smiling doesn't mean they're right. Just because a lie is loud doesn't make it true. And just because someone's polite while they're walking over you doesn't mean you should stay quiet. After that, folks changed their tune. The Wilson boys came back asking about my Chevy. Miss Evelyn brought over cornbread and said, "Sorry I doubted you, baby." Even Jerome sent me a text that said, "Real glad you stood up. Proud of you." As for Karen, she didn't apologize. She didn't throw another party either. She stayed quiet, real quiet, just like she should have from the beginning. I still sit by the pool some evenings. Just me, the sound of the water, and the stars overhead. And you know what? Feels like mine again. Not because I won. Not because I proved anything. But because I didn't let anyone take my peace without a fight. And I'd do it again if I had to. Every nail, every brick, every word. I built this, and I took it back.